Hello and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in work and in life and simplify them. And friends, oh my goodness, I am so excited for you to meet the person that I'm speaking with today. Because little known fact, if you have been following the Simplifiers for, I don't know, maybe the last 10 years, you have probably seen her work and not even known it. She designed our logo a million bazillion years ago, and it's always stuck since then. But she's changed gears since that moment. A lot has happened in her life and in her professional career. She's written a book talking about being radically content. And the topic we are going to simplify today, are you ready? Is how to say no to hustle culture. Now, my special guest, her name is Jamie Varon, and her writing has been seen across the internet for well over a decade, from her early days of personal blogging all the way to features in Teen Vogue, Huffington Post, Good, Complex, and so many more. Over the years, both her long-form essays and short-form prose have garnered millions of reads and views using her unique and signature style of combining personal story with universal themes. So, I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Jamie Varon. Hey, Jamie.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad we get to connect like this after so many years.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we worked together a bazillion years ago when I hired Shatterbox, your agency, to do our rebrand. And, we were talking about this offline. I have that kind of mother hen feeling when I see you and how your career has blossomed. And you were saying the same for us and the work that the Simplifiers have done in the world as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, I just love that. I mean, well, that's how I feel when I do design work for people. I'm like, go forth and just prosper, It's like I'm part of the genesis of it.
You are our little chickens out in the world doing big things. And now you have written this incredible book that is out in the world now, and it's called Radically Content: Being Satisfied in an Endlessly Dissatisfied World. And my goodness, the timing is ripe for this. What sparked you to write this book in the first place?
Well, I mean, I've been thinking about and striving. Striving is a weird word to say for striving for contentment. It's like, got it backwards there. But yes. I've been trying to find my version of contentment for a very, very, very long time. And I had book proposals and outlines about all of these things where we just keep delaying our happiness and delaying our joy for some future moment that says, congrats, you made it. You get to enjoy your life. And I was like, when does that click in? When's that going to happen? And I just started really honing in on this. And I think it was the perfect time. By the time that I felt very, very content with myself, that's when all the opportunities started coming. It felt like very divine timing in that sense of I had to really live in my version of being radically content to be able to write it. And then it just so happened that 2020 happened, and a lot of people were starting to question, what am I striving for? What am I trying to prove? Why am I hustling like this? Why am I addicted to productivity? What's up with this? And I was like, you know what? I've been writing about this for a long time.
Yes.
I didn't realize, and I felt like I was a little bit before my time because people were very much into the striving, how many hours they put in, all of this stuff. And I was actively trying to unlearn all of that when a lot of people were just fully in it. And I was like, I can't be like this. I need to be happy somehow.
And you're spot on. I think there's been a wave in the last 10 years, certainly, of glorifying busy. And the hustle culture that is around us is if you work more, you will achieve more, and success, more is better, right? And then, a little thing like a pandemic made us all stop dead in our tracks and change everything that we know. And I really do think it is a renaissance right now where a lot of us are going, hang on, that's not real. That's not serving me anymore. And surely there's something different, right?
Absolutely. I think I say that a lot of people in 2020 met themselves for the first time. And I feel complete compassion for that. because when things slowed down, I think a lot of people recognize, wow, I was using busyness as a way to really avoid myself and what I needed to hear and listen to within. I had been painstakingly listening within for a very long time. So I was like, I get it. I get what that feels like. And I get what it feels like to finally slow down and go, I don't think what I want is going to be out there. It's got to be within. And I think what happened in 2020 was a lot of people recognized, and it was all those things that were like placeholders for worth and value. They went away. And so people were like, well, what? I mean, they had a crisis of identity. Of course, that makes sense. A lot of these things that we were doing to fill our lives, consuming, busyness, obligatory things, avoiding our friends and family, avoiding simplicity, just the simplicity of like being outside for the day.
Yes.
It's like, I think a lot of us recognized, wow, oh my God, we got so far from that. Like it was, I think it was a big course correction for a lot of people.
And, you really set it up nicely in the introduction of the book. And if you don't mind, I'd love to read from your introduction.
Sure.
So this is page 8. These are your words. Often what we think we need and want isn't a true, genuine desire. It's a reach for social capital. Because in our current world, social capital means more than anything else. Have the right body, the right look, the right skin color, the right sexual orientation, the right belief system, the right everything, and you will be fine. Everyone else will have to either grapple with a sense of feeling inadequate or be forced to spend years unlearning their own self-hatred. A self-hatred that was given to them by a narrow-minded society that wants to make happiness and worth a matter of deserving. Who deserves it more? We've created a system that makes people fight for, claw for, and suffer for their worth. We have created hierarchies of humanity so that only ones at the very top are supposedly living, quote unquote, well. It's a bad system. It's a bad system because nobody seems to be very happy, even the people at the top. Tell me more. Why is it a bad system?
Oh, that like hit me. Because I remember writing that. The system is bad because I think so many people, even the people at the top, they're power hungry. They want more and more and more, which I think is an affliction. I just don't think you can be happy. If you're never where you are, how do you ever claim happiness? So not only are the people who are striving for that social capital, who maybe have it in some way, that privilege in some direction, they're terrified they're going to lose it.
Yes.
They're terrified that what's going to happen when the social structures change. Okay, so they're up in the status quo world, wanting to keep everybody, wanting to create these systems, create these hierarchies. That's why we have the status quo, because it benefits the people who live up to it. Okay, so then we have the people, obviously we know where how bad and how harmful it is for the people who don't live up to the status quo, who don't want to live up to the status quo. And they have to then spend, years and years and years of their life unlearning where their value has been put.
Right.
Like it's like we breathe it in from the moment that we, that we're not even conscious of it yet. And that happened to me. I felt like I woke up one day and I was just like, where am I? Who am I? I have been told who I am since I was a kid. And I don't know who I am. And I'm sitting here hustling, talk about hustle. Like I'm hustling for my worth. I'm asking everyone out there, am I good enough yet? Because that's what it is, right? Like the hustle culture is not really this desire. Like it's not our true desire to achieve. It's really a desire, and we don't realize that it's a desire for worth. Because otherwise, if we were just achieving, it's like, okay, do what you need to do in the day and then move on to the next day. But the obsessiveness, the feeling, the compulsion to continue to work and work and work to the point that it's harmful It's like that can't be coming from a healthy place. A healthy place doesn't ask you to harm yourself to get a result that's going to tell you that you're worthy or that you're good enough.
Yeah.
Like this idea, it's interesting because I put it in the book, and I have, since the book's been out, it's been like overwhelming. The people that have said, like, are you in my head? Is this my story? And it's my story. But I'm like, okay, so it's our story. Because this idea of trying to be good enough is something that plagues so many of us. And it's like, we didn't all just grow, like kids don't sit there going, am I good enough? It's learned. Mm-hmm. It's learned to put ourselves on some sort of scale and measurement. Like I've been talking a lot about measuring because especially with a book coming, a book that's out, it's like there's all these measurements. How's it doing? People really want to know, they're like, how's it doing? I'm like, in what way? What are you going to say? I already know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Why do you have to determine whether it's successful based on these external metrics that we've been taught to care about? And I'm going to put my worth on that. That's where my worth's going to come from. No, I've done that.
Yeah. And, it's probably the same as what I hear a lot whenever I meet new people. They go, oh, tell me about this podcast. How many downloads? How many countries are tuning in? And I know those metrics. But for me, it's about the one. It's when I speak to somebody one-to-one or they send me a private message on social media or otherwise that go, that episode you did touched my heart, changed my whole trajectory of my life. Like it really does come down to the one for me. And I'm sure as an author now, there's, well, how many units did you sell? How many podcasts did you do? How many interviews? How many this? How many press articles? Ba, 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 ba. And that's where the not enough flares its ugly head because it will never be enough, right?
No, if you're measuring that way and measuring it to tell you you've made it, you're good, you're successful. It's like, okay, so maybe I hit the New York, it's like you hit a list, but then someone else hit that list and they've been on it for longer.
Yes.
So it's like, oh, okay, well, is that the measure now? I mean, how do I what's been happening with the book is I feel the same way. It's like the one person that messages me and tells me, they're detailing all this healing that they're having through it. And I'm like, that's the reason why we don't think that's enough sometimes is because it's very hard to measure an emotion and a feeling, like a feeling of being proud of the work that you've done. It's so much easier to go, no, I have to hustle to get that next achievement because at least that's measurable. And then other people can say, hey, you did it. You made it.
Yeah.
And then you better stay there because we'll take it away. We'll take away
right. What's
from
next?
You.
What's next?
Right.
Yeah.
What's your next thing?
Well, and I think it's interesting. We don't ask artists, painters to talk about output, right? Because they make one piece of art, one unit, one thing. And, we don't question that as much, I don't think. Maybe we do. Sometimes the gift is actually creating the thing, the healing that you also went through, I'm sure, getting those words up and out of you and onto paper and then being brave enough to show it to the world too, right?
Oh my God. I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot since the book has come out because I feel incredibly grateful that I loved the process of writing it because if I had hated it, I got to tell you, it would be a letdown when my book came out because it hasn't given me the sense of wonder and magic and pride that I felt when I finished that book and how I felt writing it and showing up every day, like that consistency as someone who struggled with writer's block since I was like 14, 15, always had this dream for me to be able to sit down and the words flowed because I didn't have constant chatter in my mind of, well, was that sentence good enough? Is this going to be good enough? Is this going to sell a lot of copies? Yeah. You better make sure that you're writing something that's going to sell a lot of copies. Instead, it was like, write the most truthful thing that I could think of in that moment. Write that.
Yeah.
And the fact that I did that and that I was brave enough to, and that I stayed with myself and every day felt like exciting that I got to do that. I remember sending the manuscript in to my editor. And then I remember being very nervous about the notes that I was going to get back, and then receiving the notes and feeling so seen, so heard, beautiful, beautiful notes that were just going to make it so much better. And I remember actually turning in the manuscript and going, I honestly don't care what happens from here. Yeah. That was it for me.
Yeah. And I think that there's so much that can be taken from that, no matter what industry you work in. If you're a graphic designer, a wedding planner, a photographer, anyone out there can take a little bit from what she just said. Because when you put your work, your special sauce, your thing out into the world, it breathes a life of its own. But I also think about it. I mean, I don't know how many, 350 episodes into the podcast now. Every single one is a piece of work, an art, if you will, that I put out in the world. It almost feels like a love note to our listeners, but to myself, because it's like a place marker of where I was in that exact moment in life. And you may change, you may evolve, you may deepen your beliefs in radical contentment, 5, 10, 20 years from now too, right?
I look forward to that.
Yes.
I look forward to, I already feel like since my book came out, I am becoming a new version of myself, because now I've had to let go of the identity I've had for so long of, when's my book going to come out? Mm-hmm. I'm not the published author. And now I'm like, I am a published author. So now what's my, now I don't have that identity anymore. Yes. And, I think that what you're saying about putting out the episodes, and each one is special. Each one represented a moment in time for you, and here's the thing, like if you had felt every single episode had to live up to a certain metric, how easy it would be to burn out. Like we don't realize that burnout is often a combination of factors where mostly it's because we're deriving our worth from outside of ourselves. Yes. Like we're looking to, like for example, if I had said to myself, the only way this book was worth doing is if it becomes a #1 New York Times bestseller. Mm-hmm. Even if it became it, even whatever it does, I can't know. That would be a horrible thing to add on to this beautiful process. Yes. To say that's the only way it would be successful, or you saying to yourself, the only way that I feel like a success is if it hits a certain number of downloads or a certain place on the charts. And it's not to say those things aren't exciting, that those things aren't fun if they happen. But I'm a big proponent of putting things where they belong. Yes. Not where they don't belong. Those achievements belong somewhere. Sure. You can feel pride, you can feel excitement, but I don't think that they belong as markers of worth. And that's where we've been taught to believe. So that's why we have this compulsion, bringing it back to that hustle. Why we have that compulsion to hustle is because we're trying to derive something outside of ourselves that we have to feel within. So of course it never feels like enough. Also, how do we ever feel good enough? There's no definition. I call this in the book an unwinnable game. Mm-hmm. And we have these vague concepts that are unwinnable games, like something like more is better. Okay, but how much more? Right. And what? What is enough? Yeah, it's whatever feels like enough, because there's always more. Or people who are so worried about settling. It's what does settling mean? Right. My life as it is right now, that but that might look like the absolute tip-top ambition. And if I have a different perspective, I could say, oh, I'm settling. It's impossible to define. And being good enough is another thing that we're all trying to define. We're all trying to find outside of ourselves, one day. Yeah. And I'm I've had so many of those one days, and it never, ever clicks in. And I'm just it doesn't work. So it's these games that we're playing with ourselves, where we're saying one day I'll feel good enough, or I can't settle if it looks like this or this or this, or it's not enough, or it's not this. these things are so impossible to define, which is why we get so obsessive about them.
Yes.
Because it's like, but give me a number, like give me something to hold on to.
Right. And in this whole month on the podcast, we have really focused all of our conversations, all of our episodes on discernment, making a choice, like actually drawing a line in the sand of your own life, your own identity, your own belief systems, and going, you know what? Enough is enough. Like, this is no longer serving me. So I'm making a conscious choice to try something different. And so if we're to say no to hustle culture, I think step one is to define it first. So how would you define hustle culture, and what are the consequences or warning signs that you might be caught up in this trap right now?
Yeah. So hustle culture is, in my mind, it's hustling and overvaluing productivity and achievement to the detriment of our well-being. So there's nothing wrong with striving. There's nothing wrong with hustle if you like love that and you want to work hard and whatever. Okay, if that gives you something, great. But it's when it becomes, there's a fine line, and when it becomes harmful to your well-being, when you're neglecting sleep, when you're neglecting your physical well-being, when you're neglecting more commonly your mental and emotional well-being.
Yes.
And saying one day later, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
That is hustle culture. It's the promise of hustle culture. It's that if you work hard and you never stop and you sleep when you're dead and you do all of this, one day you'll get to be happy.
Yeah.
And that one day, the promise is, it's a lie. Because anyone will tell you. Anyone will tell you if you're willing to listen. Like, now that I've been acutely aware of this, most people will tell you, even at the tip top of their game, they'll tell you that they've had this feeling of like, this didn't give me what I expected it to give me. But we kind of idolize people so much that we're like, no, that's not true. We ignore that part, and then we go, but I really want to be famous. And I really want to have this. I want to be the best. I want to build an empire. I want all of this. And the consequence is that we get very burnt out. Most people that are in this, they have cycles of burnout, and where it's like they can't do anything. And then there's stress when they're trying to rest and relax. Like, if you cannot rest and relax and you don't have that baked into your days to just pause and be like, you're in it. You're in it. Yeah. Because if you're not connecting with yourself, if you're disconnected from yourself, you're not listening to yourself, and you're working to the point where it's overriding your health and your well-being and your happiness and your enjoyment of the day, because you think, I'm not there yet. But once I get there, okay, yeah, I'll do all this.
And U.S. Society then says, wow, if you're really stressed out, then you kind of need a triple espresso latte. And while you're at it, make it a frappuccino, because then add in the extra sugar and the calories, because that will power you through whatever you get. And then it goes, oh, but you know what? You're a little bit overweight, so you probably should throw in some protein shakes and some diet pills and some this and some that. And then it goes, oh, but you know what? You really need these prescriptions and pills. And it just becomes this cycle of masking the symptoms and the root cause and numbing that becomes cyclical, and you never escape. And that's the hard part of all of it, is that once you start, it's just like being awoken to the matrix. When you start to see it and you go, hang on, why am I stuck in this hamster wheel? Why am I opting in to the 80 bazillion things that, capitalism wants me to buy to solve my problems, air quotes? Is there something different, right?
Yeah. I mean, we can see how pervasive and ridiculous this is by look at morning routine culture now.
Yes.
Okay. Morning routines are for you to ease your way into the day, to have something that pours back into you, that feeds you. But instead, what we've turned it into is wake up at 5 a.m., have your water with lemon, have your green juice, have your, and don't forget to post it all over social media to make sure that everybody knows that you've got your killer morning routine. Okay, meditate, check. Journal, check. Get it, check. All of us, my heart rate's raising right now, just thinking about that. I'm like, it's a freaking morning routine. Like, it's supposed to be calm. Like, it's actually supposed to feed you. And now we've turned it into yet another competition. What's your morning routine? What are successful people's morning routines? We need to know. Okay, I'll do that. That'll make me successful.
Right.
And it's like, oh my God, it's just supposed to be for you. Like, we have done it to everything, like, even the things that are most for us. It's like meditation. Meditation has now been turned into meditate for better productivity.
Right. Gamify your meditation.
Right. It's like meditate because like it makes you feel calm, or like yoga your way into like a better body. It's like, why do we have like a compulsion. It's a compulsion to do this. And I just refuse all of it. Like I truly, I think I'm now in this place where I see it and I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Like I'm now beyond, and I don't say that in any kind of better way. It's just, like you're saying, like I see the matrix.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't consent to this.
Well, and that is the real crux of what we've been talking about all month long with different speakers from different aspects of life, from eating, in a way that really serves your whole body to, even developing your psychic gifts, how to make a choice. And when we make choices, there are three aspects to a good choice. It is either yes, please, thank you, no, thank you, or doing nothing. Because when you do nothing, that's still a choice, right? And I think some of the things you said, I really want to put a pin on it because I think it's really important. Yes, we highly productize all of our routines and all the things, but then we also, it may happen and we're not even aware of it, but perfectionism is hustle culture. Having to get everything right so that I can show my perfect life on social media. And also the comparing ourselves to others, because there is this strive to be something, to emulate the best, quote unquote. That is exhausting. And so I want to switch gears because your book talks about the whole first half of the book is about unlearning these things. And then the second half is about learning better things, newer things that are more help you become more radically content. So define radically content for us in a real, authentic, and lasting way.
Radically content is when you're living from your truest, freest self.
Yeah.
Unlearning societal expectations and finding out what's underneath all of that. All of the conditioning, what's underneath the conditioning. That's radically content. That is your most radically content life. It's not going to look like my life. It's not going to look like Mary's life. It's going to look like your beautiful life.
Yes.
Where maybe it's being as ambitious as one can be, or maybe it's going, you know what? I think I want something much simpler than what I thought. And, and it's really it's not about following this cookie cutter path of like, okay, these are what the successful people do with their things. And okay, now I need to perfect it. And it, now I need to show it on social media because how my life looks, if my life looks successful, I'm successful, right?
Right. And how do we measure success? We measure it by clicks and likes and shares, right? No.
Yeah.
That's
it's great. Yeah. It's like, great. And let's not measure success or happiness or anything by like, how do we feel in our day-to-day life? Like to me, waking up and actually liking myself is success. The end. Everything else, I'm just like icing on the cake that I got to write a book and do all the other things that I'm doing.
Yes.
Because I woke up for 20 plus years, 25 plus years, hating myself. Yeah. So, and nothing that I did made me feel content enough to say nothing that I did externally told me, now you get to love yourself. Yeah. Congrats. It was all within. And so being radically content is not about being complacent and saying, okay, I'm content forever, because we do. It's a little controversial, the word contentment, because of course, in our striving, proving culture, we're like, no, I got to earn my happiness.
Right.
I got to earn my joy. So don't tell me to be content, because then I'm just going to be lazy and sitting on my couch. It's like, probably not. Because if you're not trying to distract yourself from your life, you're not trying to escape yourself, you're not trying to disassociate. It's like you access this truest part of yourself where you're like, you know what? I have this interest. I have this gift. I have this challenge that I want to do. I have this thing. I don't know. I kind of want to learn piano. I don't know. Like that's a cool hobby. Like all this stuff when you access and you're not always going, well, what are people going to think of that?
Yeah.
And is that going to be successful? Is it going to work? Is it going to work out? It's like, well, if you're enjoying it, it's working out. Mm-hmm. That's your whole, like, it's all for you. This life is for you, you know?
And what I hear in what you've said is, and I think that this is really important to stress, is that you really have to intentionally opt out of society's trap. And the trap is consumerism. Like you're never enough. So you need to buy these things constantly, every single day, every single week, right? And then you'll finally get there, and there is never here, right? Which is such a trap. But what I also hear in what you're saying is it's almost like scooping out and redefining your internal value system. Tell us more about that, because I think that's an integral piece.
Yeah, I write about that a lot in the book. Of essentially, we've been given this value system that we grew up with, and we didn't consent to it. It just was drilled into us. And we're really disempowered from having our own value system because, we're supposed to be good citizens, good workers, good, do your thing. And really what we have to do is definitely scoop out the conditioning, which is why the first half of my book is about unlearning. Yeah. It's like, that's the first step, gaining awareness and unlearning this. It's not all the other things, you can't achieve your way into this, unfortunately. And then replacing it with like, what do you value, not just about the world, but about yourself? Yes. Like something that really, really surprised me when I recognized it was I am able to define and identify who I am without the world telling me. I don't have I don't look to the world now and go, who am I? Who am I? Tell me. Am I like, what box do I fit into? I'm like, I don't care. I'm self-contained. Yeah. I've defined myself. And we really don't realize that is like not just something we can do. It is our power to do that. Yeah. Like it is so powerful to be able to do that and say, especially for women who are business owners, who are moms, where there's so many definitions just thrust upon women of who you need to be, what you're supposed to value about yourself, and that we really don't realize often that we can define ourselves for ourselves and say, I use this example a lot where, like, say you're holding a red pen and the pen is red, but someone comes up to you and says, that pen is blue. And you're like, no, it's not. It's red. I see it. I see my pen as red. What are you talking about? Yeah. But that person is vehemently like, no, it's blue. You're not going to go, you know what? Maybe this is blue. You're going to say, it's red. Yeah. I don't care what you think.
Yeah.
And that's what we can do internally.
Yeah. And you know what I think is really interesting is I know that you and your husband spent a good long years overseas in France. I spent 6 years living in England. And, for lots of us in the States, we are so indoctrinated into the striving hustle culture because it is fed to us from an early age. Just being overseas and seeing a different culture and how they approach work is fascinating and enlightening. I know my time in England, most everybody takes the good chunk of the month of August off. 3-4 weeks spent with their children and their families, and take vacations throughout the year. Whereas in America, it's shocking if anybody takes 2 weeks in a year off. Did you notice that as well when you got out of the bubble of the States and saw a different culture and experience how people actually live and work there? Did that change your perspective on this as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I spent a year in France in 2018, it was life defining because I agree with you. I mean, we don't even realize how many things of like we say, like, we didn't take any sick days this year.
Yeah.
Like, take your freaking sick day, like, I mean, take them.
Like
or
a
like,
badge of glory. Yeah.
a badge of glory. And when I was in France, I mean, even though I didn't understand all of the language, the culture is very much easy. I'm very intuitive. So it's like I can pick things up even without the language. And what the general vibe is in France, even in Paris, where it's pretty hustle, there's a lot of bustling stuff going on. But I spent 4 months in Paris, 8 months in the south of France, two very different places. And even in both of those places, there is an approach to leisure and there is an approach to taking time off that is not apparent in the US. They are not overworkers. I mean, there's even like labor laws in France,
Yes.
especially that like you can't work over a certain amount. And like something like in the south of France, I mean, it's the most beautiful place I've ever been. And yet people can still live like we needed less money to live 4 minutes from the beach in Cannes than we needed to live in LA in like a little apartment, And it's things like that are like set up for quality of life for people in France that I really noticed. Like our quality of life, our level of stress, my desire to work all the time, it was gone in France because it was just weird. It's weird to do that. And it's weird to be that fixated on getting to the next thing. I would meet people and they're like, I don't have like a big savings account. I don't care. They're like, I'm just living in the moment.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
What?
Well, and that's it. Like, I think a lot of us now, as the pandemic is slowly easing and things are starting to open up again, I really encourage you, wherever you are listening to us right now in the world, try to travel. Just get outside of your area, your city, your country, just to expand your perspective of what's possible. Because I think sometimes we make decisions in the present and in the future based on our past occurrences, right? So we know no different, so we don't do any different. And I think that that's really important. And, something kind of clicked when you were talking there. If our measure of success is not fully based on external validation, I think what I hear in what you say is that you have to truly belong in yourself, right? The belonging is such a critical thing, especially since we've all been isolated in these last couple of years from each other, that there is a rooted, deep, beautiful place that when we can belong to ourselves, we can better belong to people externally as well. What are your thoughts there?
Absolutely. I think we've really been told not to value ourselves. Like, I think that's part of the reason why we, are told what to like, why it's externalized is because then we're very disempowered. Okay, someone else tells me what I value. And I think if we define ourselves and know ourselves and belong to ourselves, it's, things like rejection, disappointment, these types of things, like you don't abandon yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed a lot. I was abandoning myself quite a bit, where I would say, like, it's almost like I had two selves. The self that would like get abandoned or disappointed, I'd be like, bye. I don't want anything to do with you. So I'll just, try to find my value somewhere else.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can be with ourselves, like, listen to our emotions. Like, our emotions are constantly talking to us. They're trying to alert us to certain things. They're trying to actually deepen our relationship with ourselves. It's interesting how much we're trying to have relationships with others, friendships, family, partners, and we're not as much in relationship with ourselves, even though that's so crucial. That's who we're with the most, like it's very hard to like change our thoughts, but we can always be very aware of them and redirect them to where we want to be thinking of. A lot of times we say to ourselves, oh, I'm my own worst enemy. I'm my own worst enemy. And it's like, do we have to be? We don't have to be. There's certain things that we're just taking as truth, like as if fact. And it's like, but why do we have to be our own worst enemies? Why do we have to be in constant self-doubt, constant externalizing what we should think about ourselves? Like, why? Why can't we be, I love that word that you're using, like, why can't we belong to ourselves?
Yeah.
I don't know why that's not normalized.
Because it doesn't make money, Jamie.
Oh, right. Of course.
Remember, but this goes back to what you were saying earlier about creating a new internal value system. And, in your book, you talk about being intentional, being consistent, and experimenting. If you unlearn the society's conditioning on us and say, you know what, in the 1,000 daily choices I have to make today, big and small, how can I be intentional with those choices? How can I choose to slow down, to be present, to experience Mother Nature, my family and friends around me, all the things, and experiment by like trying something different and seeing if the outcome actually brings you deep contentment on a cellular level, not just on a surface level, but a deep cellular level as well, right?
Yeah, I love that, because all of those things, being intentional with your time, being consistent with what you want to bring forth, and consistency, the crux of consistency, though, is knowing when you've done enough for the day. It can't be an ever lasting, I got to do more. Consistency is about saying, I will do this. I will write for an hour today. And that's it. I'm done. I've done it. I've honored myself. And experimenting without having these lofty expectations that are going to, drown us, because these, we're saying like, this has to work out, or I know that this result will make me happy and I haven't even tried it, but because someone else seems really happy on social media with that, then I need that. And all of those things, experimenting, being consistent, being intentional, this is a way of honoring yourself. And you notice none of those things are about, what can I get from the outside world? What is that going to earn me? Yeah. It's all about, I'm honoring myself. Like, that's a big part of it, and saying, this is something that I've wanted to do. This is something that's on my heart. This is something important to me. I'm going to honor myself by being intentional about bringing it to fruition, by being consistent, because that's the action, and by making sure it's more experimental and fun instead of putting all these pressures on it. Because anytime, if you're living on autopilot and not being intentional, if you're saying you want to do something but you're breaking the promise to yourself, if you're doing something and then overloading it with lofty expectations, all of that is actively harming you instead of loving you, instead of honoring you. Because anytime you're feeling like you're harming yourself in order to get something, or any time that you're feeling like, I need this and I feel empty without it, the best question, like going back to what you said, it doesn't make money. The best question is like, who is profiting off me feeling this way?
That's it.
And it's usually really obvious, actually. Like, we know, talk about discernment. We usually know, and then we just don't go that extra step. We just go, I need it. And I gotta go find a way to get it, instead of going, who's going to profit off me feeling like crap about myself until I get this thing? Okay. Do I really want to put my power in their hands, or can I put the power back within?
Yes. Oh, preach. And, I think that this is what's really, really important, because, and I want to clarify, like, what Jamie is saying is not, you're just succumbing to your couch and laziness. This is definitely not that. You can still have goals. You can still have dreams. You can still have passions and pursuits in life. But it's held in a very different container, if you will. Because 9 times out of 10, who's profiting? Not you. It's somebody else, some other thing out there in the world that has got so much control over you and your life and your 1,000 daily choices. And I think that that's what's interesting is that we've bought into, as a society as a whole, this constant pursuit of our best lives, right? Good vibes only, best lives, all the things. And why do you feel like that's so dangerous for us to be in constant pursuit of our best lives?
Well, because if we really look at it, when we even imagine the phrase best life, it's a phrase coined by social media for people
Yes.
doing very specific things. You know, oh, I'm living my best life. I'm on this very expensive vacation.
Yes, look at me.
You know, oh, yeah, look at me. Or I don't drink. So I'm like really attuned to when my best life is attributed to being drunk.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really drink that much. So I notice it more because I don't have that outlet of like, I'm drunk on a boat, so it's my best life. You know, it's not my thing. And so things like that, where it's very externalized, the best life. To me, I'm much more about like, I want to live my free life, like freest life, my most expressed life, like where I'm honoring myself versus honoring others by saying, I'm living my best life. Look, 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 look.
Yeah.
And like saying that I should be happy because it looks good to others.
Right.
And I mean, that's just, we know when we tease it out and we see, we're like, I know this is not going to make me happy, but what my compassion is with all of this and why I wrote Radically Content is that what ends up happening is we don't know another way.
Yeah.
Because we know, we're like, this is kind of hurting me. Like, this kind of doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
But what else can I do? Because I don't want to give up on my ambition. I don't want to, because that's a lot that's out there. It's like you either have to be like off the grid, minimalist, you know, I don't know, monk on a mountain, or you're like, pursue, pursue, pursue. And I was like, you know what? I think I just need like a middle ground here, please. And that's why I wrote Radically Content, because I was like, this is something that just makes sense. It's like, just you are enough. Your worth is unconditional. And speaking to the complacency on the couch thing, I am the least complacent person. I am more productive and more like consistent and more prolific than I've ever been as I've become more and more content, because I know it's coming from a true, genuine place. It's like something that I want to do, not something that I'm saying, you know, oh, I need to live up to society's ideals. It's just like, I ask myself when it comes to like, what's next? I'm like, what's the next thing I want to experience?
Yeah.
What's the next thing I'm bringing into fruition? Is that a different experience with like more abundance, more financial abundance, more, I don't know, do I want to be more public? Do I want to be less public? Do I want, you know, like all of this, it's more like, what am I craving as my next experience and my next feeling and my next iteration of myself versus how do I capitalize on this? What does the world want from me?
Mm-hmm.
It's never about me. And so I'm always like a martyr to and I'm like, no, my life is about me.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, and I think of that, I think you're spot on, because I think when I think in those lenses and that framework, I think about future goals and visions that I have for myself are either rooted in a place of pleasure, like what type of pleasure do I want to receive in my life, that, you know, when I do tasks or work on projects that really light me up, my true spirit inside, and or how does this serve the world, like make a positive impact either with the one person or millions across the world. You know, and I think that that's okay. Like you can do both. Things can be pleasurable and light your spirit up and also make a positive impact on the world. And when you look at it from that place, it has nothing to do with metrics. It has nothing to do with money. And funny enough, the money flows in every time.
Every time.
Every stinking time.
It all seems to, it all just kind of works. And you're like, it was that hard and that easy at the same, you know, it was like, I had to unlearn all this crap. Mm-hmm. And now it just gets to be a lot more fluid and a lot more trusting in myself and trusting in the joy and enjoyment, and that just like, it's like coming from an abundance mindset versus the scarcity. Cause I mean, we really are obsessed with abundance in the sense of money, but I actually look at abundance as like, just how do I even like, is my joy abundant? Is my appreciation of the world and my life abundant? Am I feeling like I always have people that I can talk to, my family, like all this stuff? It's like truly living from an abundant foundation, which I also think is like very radically content, because it's saying like, I have enough, I am enough, and still I have my beautiful goals that I'm so excited to pursue. And I have these things I want to bring to fruition. And I have this challenge that I want to see what I can do with it. And I do want this result. Wow. Like even underneath all of this, I still want that. Cool.
Yeah.
Let me give it. Let me give it my all.
Yeah. And so what I hear in that is releasing this like if-then statement in life. I'll be happy if I do this, when, da, da, da. And then also releasing that need for control. Like our poor little sweet little human brains are desperately striving for some control. And I think when you release those two things, then the universe can kind of do its magic and go, hang on, Mary, like check this out, and blow you away, right?
Oh yeah. I used to be I had a stint of a lot of control where I was trying to control everything. And that release has been so beautiful. I mean, it's been times where it's harder to trust.
Yeah.
But a lot of times once I do really surrender and trust, it's like, I now see, I'm like, wait, the universe's way is way better than my little brain has been trying to like figure out. Like when I'm in that place of like, I got to figure this out. And I'm just like, no, I don't. Just give it up. Okay. You surprise and delight me, universe.
Yes. And I love the moments of serendipity. I have had a couple over the last couple of months that have just blown my mind. Serendipity of meeting a new person who changes your perspective in some massively radical way. That I also have this little hope in my heart that somebody is listening to you and I now, and they've never heard your voice before, and they go, wait a second, this girl's on to something. This is big, and you're radically changing somebody to rethink their own deep contentment in life too. Oh, it's so beautiful to me.
I know. I love that. That's what this is about. I mean, it's about, we're here as souls to connect and share our different knowledge and like add to this tapestry of whatever we're creating in this iteration of ourselves. And, that's what it's all about. And it's not about, we've massively complicated it.
Yes.
And I think, this kind of thing is what it's about. It's about and being able to share where we've evolved, where we've grown, and someone else across the, country can listen to that and go, whoa, this is like actually changing how I view myself. Like I've had moments like that all the time when I'm open to it, when I feel, when I have this core belief that life is magical and always working out for me, it really, magic is everywhere.
Yeah, it's true. And so, I want to talk about the very human downfall that every single one of us hits at some point in our day, week, life, month, is that negative self-talk, that voice in our head that keeps us constantly dissatisfied or feeling unworthy of happiness and deep contentment. How can we reduce that?
Yeah, so I think what the typical advice for that is, okay, go from like this self-loathing voice to compassion and love. Like just love yourself. And you're like, that's a big gap. I need a bridge, babe. Like I need a bridge here. To me, the bridge is shifting the questions and the self-talk into true and deep curiosity. It's not about saying, I need to change this. I need to shift this. It's about going, how can I look at this more curiously? So even something like, okay, you're procrastinating. We love to get upset with ourselves about procrastination, and why am I not doing? What's wrong with you? You're never going to be successful. You're never going to make it. Like, it's never going to happen for you if you can't even just do this one thing. Okay. And that's what we do. So all of a sudden you can even notice when I'm saying that there's blocks going up, walls. Mm-hmm. Now you're behind a fortress of this shame and judgment, right? But to me, whenever something like that happens and the negative self-talk comes in, I have to be looking for solutions. And the only thing that opens doors is curiosity. Mm-hmm. So what opens the door is same question asked in a different way. Mm-hmm. Why am I procrastinating on this? What's coming up in the body? Yeah. What did I just scroll while I was procrastinating that then hit me? Did I just compare to someone and now I'm feeling unworthy?
Yes.
And saying, so instead of going, oh, you should be loving yourself, though, what's wrong with you? You can't just love yourself and do this. Walls, blocks. But curiosity opens everything up, and it's the same exact question, just asked in a more kind way where we can open up doors and something like that can be in a journal, that could be in your head. That can be in a voice note that you ask yourself, go on a walk and say, okay, let me talk this out with myself, and then delete it. No one ever has to read it, see it, hear it.
Exactly.
But we have to learn how to sit with ourselves in those moments and really get curious and not get those judgments of, well, what's wrong with you? This is never going to happen for you. This is shame. This is judgment. These are voices of the world that are just like not serving us. And when we can open up and be really, really curious and kind of gentle with ourselves, it's not going to make us, we have this fear, like it's going to make us like give up, or I can't be nice to myself. I haven't earned that yet. Like I need to do more. It's like, actually, it's going to really make you more motivated. Yes. It's going to make you happier and lighter and actually like open your life up to solutions where you are not seeing them before. Like you might recognize like some core belief about, or you might even recognize if you're procrastinating on something, for example, you might recognize like, I don't want to do this. It's like, I am forcing myself to do this because someone on Instagram said to do this. And this is bullshit. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, and you're just like, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. One less thing to have to worry about to put on my list. Like, great. But you don't get to that. You don't get to that moment. You don't get to that aha moment without being curious, because all you're doing with the judgment is shutting it down. And so it's just like, I think people can really ease themselves away from negative self-talk into curiosity. Like that feels doable versus negative self-talk to love yourself on a beach doing yoga.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And what I hear in what you say there is like that cultivating that real self-trust, because if you're curious and you're listening and also giving space, you call it your inner child, your inner saboteur, whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Labels don't matter to me. But when you listen and then take action, that's how you build trust, right? That's just the same as a friendship. If you have a friendship that's burgeoning, that is building and growing, how does the friendship become stronger? Is when one person talks, the other one listens without judgment and runs alongside them. And it's like, oh, you are listening. You are doing the thing. And then with trust, slowly becomes compassion and respect and love, right?
Yeah. And trust is something also, especially with our relationship with ourselves, using the friendship example, it's the same, that like trust, think of if you're starting a friendship with someone and they said, I'll meet you Friday at 1, and they don't show up. Okay, cool. Sure. Fine. One time. But then the next time they don't show up. And then the next time they don't show up. And you're like, I don't trust this person at all. But think that we do that to ourselves all the freaking time.
Yeah.
And then we wonder, why don't I love myself? Like, why don't I trust myself? Why don't I love myself? It's like, we're not even doing the very foundational things that our other relationships have to do. Like, that we have to show up when we say we're going to show up. We don't say, okay, friend, you need to show up for me every single day for 5 hours a day And if you don't, then okay, then you're the one with the high expectations that you're just setting them up to fail. But we do that to ourselves too. We say, okay, you're going to exercise for 2 hours every single day. And if you don't, you're a failure. You're a failure. Instead of going, you're going to exercise for like 10 minutes a day to start, maybe 3 times a week. Make sure you do that. You had that promise, show up. And then it builds and you go, wow, I'm actually showing up for myself. It doesn't have to be big, splashy things. Like that's the same in friendships. It's the same in a partnership.
Yes.
It's the small things when we're like, your actions are aligned with your words. Like actions speak louder than words. And that applies to us too.
Mm-hmm. Integrity, internal value system, doing what you say you're going to do, and coming at it from a completely different space of love. Oh, Jamie. Oh, I
know.
Truly, this book is so amazing. And I really encourage you, if you're listening right now and you're curious about her work, her writing is spectacular. Let me just say that. It's like listening and reading your favorite girlfriend who is speaking truly in your internal voice. So the book is called Radically Content, Being Satisfied in an Endlessly Dissatisfied World. You can find this book now at your local bookshop around the corner or wherever online as well. And of course, remember all the things we talk about in today's episode, you can find over at the show notes at thesimplifierspodcast.com, which includes our social media handles, which I believe your Instagram is one of my favorites right now. Beautiful, beautiful words that help kind of get you out of the matrix and go, hang on, wait, is this serving me? Is there something better? That's Jamie's work to me. So, Jamie, I have a few questions as we wrap up. And again, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your beautiful wisdom and your beautiful brain and heart. So my first question is this. Tell us, what's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system?
The book, Many Lives, Many Masters. It changed my whole perspective. Like I read it before I wrote my book, and I felt like it set the foundation because it's all about past lives and what your soul is here to do. And it was just, and I was like, this just makes sense in my heart of like what it's about.
Yes.
I had been searching for so long, felt like I was always in an existential crisis. Like, why are we here? Why am I here? Why are humans here? And that book was just such a beautiful primer for me and going, oh, that's why. That's why. Like the metaphysical is the only thing that's really made sense to me because I'm like, it can't just be we come here to hate ourselves and pay bills and die.
Yeah.
Like it's not what we're here for. It can't be.
Love it. Well, if you're curious about that book, we'll also link that up in the show notes for people. You guys can check it out. Again, thesimplifierspodcast.com. So tell me, who's one person in your network, somebody you know personally, you just feel is up to brilliant things? We could shine a spotlight on them, and who knows, maybe one day we'll have them on the podcast.
Yeah. I actually don't know her personally, but I feel like I do. Her name is Africa Brooke, and she is just a mind expander, I would say. She's talks a lot about censorship and a lot of the stuff about cancel culture online, and her approach to compassion and seeing all sides and saying there are no sides, like we're just humans, has really helped me in a time when being a public figure on the internet can be tough, especially someone who has voice. And she has really expanded my understanding of like what we've done to each other online and really helped me see a different perspective. So love her work. Her stuff on Instagram is it'll really challenge you, which I like. I like to be challenged.
Oh, she is so good. Yes. If you don't know her work, you should definitely check it out. Again, we'll link her up in the show notes for you guys. So I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what are you grateful for today?
I'm very grateful for the fact that I now get to, this book has not changed my life because because of all the external metrics, although those have been interesting too. I now get to write a new story for myself.
Yeah.
I'm not on the outside looking in of a thing that I've always wanted to do. And I feel very grounded in a time when I would have thought in the past I would not be very grounded. So I'm very grateful for the work that I've done to ground myself and belong to myself, as you said so beautifully, because I see how massively important it is to have that, especially in a time where it could be very easy to like lose yourself and get caught up in the hype.
100%. And I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for our friendship. I'm grateful that I've known you as long as I have. And your words do make a difference in the world. So I just want to acknowledge that and really cheer you on. You're on the right path, my friend. Definitely.
Thank you.
100%. So my final question for you today is this. And again, thank you so much for your time. Someone somewhere is just sucked down her second 5-hour energy drink. She is stressed to the max. She's maybe losing her hair. She's got to go pick up the kids in a couple of hours, and she's just hanging on for dear life. What's one thing you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her in this moment?
You're enough. Without all of this, you're enough just as you are. And find joy today. Find something about yourself that feels expansive, not in a shamey way, but in a true, I see this and I feel this. And just to know you're doing enough, you are enough, and there's nothing, whatever you think there is to do, it can wait if it needs to.
Yeah. Big love to you.
You too.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.